I didn't think this went all the way through. Not at all. But that's okay. We'll get there, right? Yeah. Alright. Can y'all not hear the music playing? No, you didn't. Dude, I've been having music playing this whole time. Oh well. I seriously need to get this on a button or something. It's really driving me crazy. Alrighty. What's happening, Neon Cyber? How you doing? Mm, tired. Yeah, I feel that. I can feel that. What are you tired from? Boredom? You're so bored. You're tired. Okay, you know what? I can make that. I can see that making sense. Hmm. All right. Is the stream still working? My connection shows that it's doing really good. Okay, there it goes. Fair. Why is it fair? Like, dude, I'm not doing anything. Like, for the love of, I've got to get me a freaking better computer. I bet you it's my computer. I don't think it's my internet. I think it's my computer. I truly do. All right. We want to try to have some fun today. I mean, that's always our goal, right? Always have some fun. Always learn something. Um, and today's no different. Uh, we're definitely going to have a bunch of fun today. I don't like the way this stream is set up. I don't like this overlay, but I just kind of threw something together real quick. So we're just going to have some fun. We're going to have learn something, and we're definitely just going to kind of go from there. Let's see what happens. So today we are talking about security and risk management, but specifically we're going to focus in on governance, risk management, and proper security policies. So, what is on the agenda for us today? We have an introduction. Then we're going to talk about governance and compliance. We're going to be looking at frameworks such as the ISO 27001, the NIST, and the GDPR. We're going to look at implementation examples and best practices, and we're going to take a look at some case studies. We're going to look at risk management processes, assessments. We're going to be looking over quite a few different things today. I'll be honest with you, I don't remember exactly putting all of this together. It is 47 slides. I'm not 100% sure what all I was able to put in here. I was literally doing 5 things at the same time. So, we're going to kind of get through this. This is also, key note right here, this is a trial test on the adaptation for creating new courses for a variety of different technologies. So I just want to let you all know this stream is more or less of a trial by error. So we're going to have some fun. The more engaging you guys are, the better off we're going to be. So the importance of security and risk management. Well, you can't just throw up a website or web application and just be all like, poof, done. No. But in today's digital age, we're going to talk about the importance of robust security and risk management. This can't be overstated. I can't explain enough. I mean, you don't buy a house and don't put a deadbolt lock on the front door, right? Cyber threats are increasing in both frequency and sophistication. As a result, we're leaving organizations of all different sizes potentially and extremely vulnerable. Yes, it doesn't matter if you're a small mom and pop shop right down the road, a medium-sized company, a Fortune 500, Fortune 10, Fortune 1. All different sizes of companies are vulnerable. Now, a single, just one security breach can result in the most significant and financial of losses. It can damage your reputation, and there's a bunch of legal consequences as well for both the attacker and the victim. Just ask the folks on down there at Equifax, maybe Yahoo. They probably got a couple of different interesting stories. They're going to share about how small oversights can turn into a major headline. Now, I do want you to remember, it is all fun and games until somebody loses their data. Let's look at some statistics for a second. Alright, we're going to paint a sobering picture. The cybercrime costs are projected to reach $10.5 trillion annually by 2025. Yes, that was a T. Trillion. $10.5 trillion in damages, legal fees, and everything else. This is going to make the most hardened CFO just break out in a cold sweat, like, right? But just beyond the financial impact, there's a trust factor. Customers are expecting their data to be protected. Failing to comply with proper security measures, proper protections, can result in your customers absolutely losing their trust with you. As such, not only do you lose that one customer, but then they'll spread the word from this person to this person to this person, yada, 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 yada. So you're going to lose a lot of reputation over it. Okay. Now, moreover, the regulatory requirements are becoming more stringent. Compliance with standards like the GDPR just isn't a good idea. It's the law. Now, being non-compliant can lead to an exceedingly amount of hefty fines and even penalties. Not to mention, you're just sitting there staring at the row of the latest of what not to do case, right? Like, so we want to keep companies out of this. So, otherwise, you could take this deal, have a little bit of a brief inside information, and we'll cover more video tutorials on how to properly set this up. If your company or your organization is not safe, it's not secure, and it's not compliant, you will be inducted into the Cybersecurity Hall of Fame. Or should I say shame? Now, let's take a look at a few of the companies that we have seen been breached just last year in 2023. T-Mobile, January 2023. T-Mobile had experienced a major data breach that exposed personal information, names, emails, birthdays. 37 million customers. Now that's a big shocker, right? The biggest shocker is it is not the first time T-Mobile had been breached. MailChimp. A lot of companies utilize MailChimp. This is an email marketing platform. This data breach happened in January of 2023. This resulted from a social engineering attack, which breached the exposure of employee information, credentials, highlighting ongoing risk of phishing and social engineering tactics. The most famous ChatGPT. In March of 2023, ChatGPT experienced a breach that exposed the user's first and last names alongside with their email addresses, their payment information, payment addresses, and the last four of the card number. Well, OpenAI quickly addressed the breach, reinforced security measures, and they went on protection. Right? Chick-fil-A. Everybody loves Chick-fil-A. Well, in early 2023, Chick-fil-A had confirmed a data breach that had affected the customer's personal information from I think it was the Android app, actually. Such as the hackers was able to get names, email addresses, physical addresses, and quite a bit more. I believe they was also able to get credit card information, if I'm not mistaken. Right? And then Google Fi. Whatever happened to be using Google Foo, back in, what was it, like 2010, get your Google Foo, right? Well, Google Foo, the mobile network provider from Google, had impacted the T-Mobile data breach. This compromised Google Fi's customers' phone numbers, and ultimately it exposed them to potential phishing attacks. So, even a network carrier like Google has been infected by this. So let's take a look right quick at the overview of governance and compliance. So what is governance? Well, let's take a look at the context itself, okay? Governance, in the context of information security, actually refers to the establishment and policies, processes, and even the controls upon which ensures the security of objectives that are met. This involves strategically direction and oversight necessary in order to achieve the organizational goals, mitigate risks, and ensure the compliance with legal and regulatory requirements. Okay, you can't just throw up a website, host a whole bunch of people's information, and not to expect the government to sit there and go, "Hey, you got to do this, man. You got to check this out." Okay, basically, governance allows you to ensure that you are following the government policies and the guidelines of hosting so much information. Now, let's look at compliance. Outside of governance, we now have compliance. Now, this actually involves adhering to those laws. So not only do you have to basically add or apply, now you have to follow the laws, regulations, and standards that is relevant to the information security. Okay, by utilizing the compliance aspect of everything, you can ensure that your organization is going to meet all legal and regulatory requirements that are required to protect sensitive information and then maintain the integrity, confidentiality, and the available information of your customers. Now, some of the common frameworks that everybody's aware of in today's world and has been for, probably the last 10 years, the ISO 27001, NIST, and the GDPR. These provide a great foundation and structures to approach and manage to secure your information on your databases and your servers. So what are the importance of governance framework? Well, if you have a very robust governance framework, this is going to be an essential for your structured security management. That is, we take a look here, we got our governance, we have our audits, our strategies, and our policies. Our compliance is the performance processes and policies, and our risk is the controls, risk, and performance. Okay, so we have quite a bit of different things that goes into your governance, risk, compliance formula or your framework. Okay, if we can sit here now, let me go back. Let me see if I can pull up this handy dandy pen right here. There it is. Turn on the pen. So if you only have, you know what, let's do it this way. If you only have half of this pie right here, okay, so you got that half of the pie, you're covered. Okay, well, by basic federal laws, you have basically applied or adapted the governance of it, right? So you've got the governance of everything. Now, what is it? This one? Aha. I'm learning this keyboard real fast. Now, if you have just this, you basically have the compliance side. Okay, so you have now, if you only are enforcing policies, some of the risks, you're monitoring your performance and you're checking your processes. Congratulations, you're in compliance. But if you don't have your governance set up, then you're 50% chance of being vulnerable, attacked. You might even face hefty fines. But now when you have the whole thing, then you are in compliance. You're in agreement and you're safe. So you can't just pick, okay, well, we're going to audit, we're going to monitor processes and performance, and we're going to hire a bunch of hackers to adjust the risks, right? You can't just have that. These three right here are basically, or technically four, but these right here are essentially what the most companies kind of just go after. As long as they can get their audits out, they can make sure their risk is good and the performance and processes. As long as those three are good, some may even go a little bit further and adapt policies only. And that's fine. It's at least the start of what you need to do. Being able to control how things operate, perform a proper strategy in case something happens, ensuring that you understand the risks and mitigate those risks as quickly and often as possible. These are going to do everything that you need for protecting your information assets. This cannot be stressed out enough. So the ISO 27001 framework. So what is it? Well, this is an international standard for information security management systems, the ISMS. It provides a very detailed, systematic approach in order to managing your sensitive company information. Why? So it can remain secure. Think of this much like you have, here's a front door to your house or to your business, right? I kind of screwed that up, so we'll just kind of fill that in. Oh, crap, I can't do that. I will learn how to use this soon. I might even go buy me one of those like little drawing doodle pads, what I might do. So this is the entrance to your company. So that's your front door. We're going to put a nice little knob right here. However I can do that. And then you have your company. I really got to go get this. Okay, so we've got a front door right here, okay? Boom. Front door. We have a doorknob, okay? Then from here, we can go to the company. Now we have this nice little hallway right here, and it leads to information, okay? Like the back bedroom. You know, like you don't want anybody going to your office or your bedroom of your house. So, by utilizing an ISO 2700, this acts kind of sort of like, I'm not even call it a bouncer really, but I'd say this actually kind of acts more of a rules and guidelines. It's like a traffic setup, or even more or less, actually no, to put it properly, it's like a lawyer. Okay, so this lawyer is sitting right here, and I will get good at drawing this. I promise you I will. Anthony, if you're watching this, I need to get me like one of those doodle drawing pads I can use for these. So, by having the ISO 2701, okay, there's our door. I'm getting good at drawing that. And here's our little hallway. The ISO 2700 would sit right here, and it would help understand the policies. So if users coming in, it kind of can go alongside with your IDS and your IPS, IPS. So it'll say, okay, you can come over here, you can come over here, whatever, and it will include the risk management. So it's like, okay, if you do not have access to here, it will block you. In essence, not always 100% effective, and don't really exactly quote me on that. I am paraphrasing. So, what are some of the key components of our ISO 27001? Well, context of the organization. Understand the external and internal issues that can affect the organization's ability to achieve intended outcomes of its ISMS. Leadership, support, resources, operational, performance evaluation, improvement, and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, the diagram I did just show you earlier is kind of sort of like how it's supposed to go. A lot of people who would sit here and understand this a little bit better than I do is like, dude, no, it's not. In a way, it kind of is. The way that this actually works out is you set your policies and procedures on what is allowed to leave and come in, and how are you handling the incoming and outgoing traffic. Is it necessarily like a software platform that's like a firewall? No, it's more complex than that. But we have different things that we can use. Now, some of the things that you'd want to look for is, in order to set one up properly, is establish an ISMS. Then you want to conduct risk assessments on your own servers, your own websites, your own APIs. Excuse me. You'd want to monitor and review, and then continual improvement. By utilizing all 5 of these right here, but not just utilizing this setup, but often. Ensuring that you have established the ISMS. One day you might be going, hey, it works. But then you go back like a week later and you go to check it and it's like, no, bummer. So you want to always ensure that you've got your establishment. Oh, I don't know how to just undo that last one. Okay, I'm just going to erase all. You might realize. Now here's what I'm realizing as I'm saying this. Establishing an ISMS. This is actually the scope of the ISMS to create information security policy. Now, when I say you might look one week and it's here and it's great, and then you look the next week and it's not great, that means that there could have been a policy that had updated. It's not like it got installed or uninstalled, nothing like that. There's a policy that needs to be updated. You might need to establish new control objectives, or you might need to remove some control objectives. So make sure that you're always staying up to date on your ISMS as per your policies. What are your federal and local regulations involved in it? Conduct risk assessments. Identify threats, vulnerabilities, and impacts. Okay? By continuously ensuring this is in compliant, you can use things like BugCrowd, HackerOne. You can use bug bounty programs to basically hire penetration testers or ethical hackers, aka bug bounty hunters, to help you find a threat, discover and exploit a vulnerability, maybe even give you a report on how the impact is. Let me give you an example. As a hacker, I could easily blah 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 blah. Once you have from a good bug bounty hunter, you said the bug bounty hunter would say and go, hey, I found a threat, a potential threat. I discovered it was a vulnerability. As a hacker, I could use these for an impact. Then your team can evaluate the risks, and then once you have those risks evaluated, then you work on the third step, implementing risk treatment plans. Okay? So if you have a risk treatment plan in motion after you understand the risk, right? Once you understand the risk, then you apply the appropriate controls to mitigate that. Let me give you an example, okay? If I come up to your company, let's say you put this up on BugCrowd. Okay, so you got a company on BugCrowd. I'm gonna try to do this as best I can. So B, C. Nope, I'm not gonna do that. Okay. you have your company hosted up on BugCrowd, or even better, you hired a company. I'm an independent contractor. Come and hire me. So you hired an independent contractor. You put your company up on BugCrowd, right? So you say, hey, here's what I need you to test for because we're not 100% sure. Maybe you just set everything up and you are working through your ISMS and your ISO 27001. You're trying to implement operational plannings. You're trying to do monitoring and measurements and analysis, right? You're trying to figure out everything. You think you got it all set up. So you're going to have a hacker come in, read over your policies, and then from there they will run and try to find vulnerabilities, weaknesses, and exploits on your server, right? And then once they're done with this, let's say all of this, they figure out, hey, check it out, I was able to find a database. I really suck at drawing this. So they found a database, right? Boom. Inside that database, we have your customers. We also have your employee information. There it goes. So now that looks like really weird. So now we have access to your customers. That could result in credit card information, personal information, shipping addresses, whatever. Your employees, we now have login credentials such as your email or password or username. We also have any SSH keys if you store those in a database, whatever. Then he'll write this report out that will have, here's your threat. Okay, so in the threat we found a database, right? Then they'll also include the vulnerabilities. Hey, this database is vulnerable. The impact. If I was a hacker, I would sell your customers' information on the dark web for money. I seriously really do need to hurry up and get one of those little drawing pads. I really do. And then not only can I sell your customers' information because I got that database. Let me draw this out. But for your employees, right, I could do some sort of like a social engineering attack, or I could fib myself as the boss. I'm going to put the boss right up here. That's fine. So I could pretend like I'm the boss, or I could pretend like I'm an employee, and then I could maybe even have access to a VPN tunnel that goes to their computer. And then guess what? I have a direct access straight to there. So my report will include the threat, the vulnerability, and the exploit, and the impacts that it has. Now, every time I do one of these risk assessments for a company, I always include the proper steps required so that way the company itself can easily patch, update, or fix this issue before an unethical hacker, an illegal hacker gets into it. So once you have this report by the hacker, then you and your team will evaluate the risk, and then you can implement the risk. Remember when I told you I always send how you can fix that? That is what I also give every time somebody hires me. Okay? This makes your job for the risk treatment. This makes your job for the risk treatment plan a lot easier. Then, once you have implemented this, you'd want to figure out a way to monitor and review the transactions and everything that's going on. You always want to check for the performance of the ISMS and make the necessary adjustments. If your current ISMS is allowing the database to be exposed to the public, right? I'm going to draw a big old huge P that looks more like a boat or a flag, but that's a P, okay guys? So this right here says, hey, we can access the database and we can pass everything along, but then you realize that's a major security breach and we are now implementing the new risk. Well, then you have to also update your ISMS. Okay, so 3 and 4 and 5 are all tied together into one. Because once you monitor, you always have to make the improvements. Okay? Just because you fix it once doesn't mean that in 3 years, that new patch that you just did is now obsolete. There's vulnerabilities. Other hackers have found a vulnerability in that XYZ risk treatment that you had set up. So, what the heck did we just talk about? What is ISMS? Well, that's the Information Security Management System. This is a systematic approach to manage the sensitive information about the company or the customers. And we just want to make sure that that remains secure. Okay, this encompasses people, processes, and IT systems. We can use a special curated risk management process that is designed for your company. The primary goal of utilizing an ISMS is to minimize risk, but ensure the continuation and the proactively access for the business while limiting the impact of security breaches. What does this mean in a nutshell? It means big smart man tells big company how to keep data safe and keep hackers out. That is the basic form of how I could explain ISMS. Hacker finds vulnerability, hacker reports vulnerability to company. Company hires hacker for consulting or hires a third-party consultant. And then that consultant says, yo, boo-boo, your crap is weak over here. We can prove it by this record. Here's what I'd suggest to fix it. Now fix it. It'd be up to the company to adhere or follow the recommendations from the consultant or from anybody that's involved in ensuring the ISMS is properly set up. This can also include training sessions for all employees, not just people who's on the phone, not just people who's on the help desk, not just for people who is the websites or the server admins. No, this is for everybody. Importance of social engineering and phishing attempts, understanding new policies in your servers or in your firewalls to help prevent and mitigate and quarantine certain things from being able to be sent through the email provider. There is a plethora of different things that actually goes into a proper ISMS structure. So identifying threats. Yo, bro, what does this mean, identifying threats? Well, just exactly what it says, man. By utilizing a hacker or even having your own internal team to continuously test, monitor, research. That is the biggest one. In today's world, it's not just about knowing the processes that it takes to find an SQLI or an XSS vulnerability or find a backdoor or upload a Trojan or perform email phishing attempts. Excuse me. But identifying, how does this happen? How are we vulnerable? How can we be better? And then how can we implement the strategies and mitigate the risks? So let's take an example right quick. If you're a company and let's say you are selling XYZ products. Okay? So you got XYZ products and you have a huge customer base. Let's say your customer base is somewhere around the ballpark of 20,000 active monthly users. You have a team of about 10, 15 employees, between handling customer complaints and issues. Then you got your website team, you got your admin team, then you got your, office admins and CEO and stuff like that. Okay, so you got all these people working for the company, you got all these people going into the company to buy crap. Well, identify threats. How can a hacker basically steal our information? Do we have anything that's weak? Are we up to date on our policies? Are we compliant with local and federal regulations with this many employees? Because when a company starts off, you might have 5 to maybe a couple of hundred active subscribers or customers. And if you have anything less than like 1,000, I mean, technically it's more like 250. If you got anything less than 250 customers, you don't really need to worry too much about compliance and regulation. But once you hit that $1,000, $1,000, once you hit that 1,000 customer deal, you might want to significantly start looking into understanding how you're vulnerable to different types of attacks. So, how do we select and apply controls? Once you've identified everything, then you might want to, if you don't know too much about the tech, hire somebody to help you apply the correct controls to mitigate these risks. These controls can include variations of different firewalls, IDS, IPS systems, maybe even set up a honeypot, right? You might just want to put up a honeypot. This can help out with a bunch of different things. Maybe you might want to look into either buying or leasing or building your own cPanel software. You might want to look into different firewall switches for your internal company to help out with detecting intrusions, or whatever you might want to look at. There are different things that you can use to mitigate the risk tolerance and increase your security objectives. And then you also want to take a look into disaster recovery plans and how you're going to back up your data. Backing up your data and disaster recovery plans are going to be extremely, extremely, extremely crucial to everything. If you do not have backups and you lost everything because a hacker didn't know what the heck they were doing, they destroyed everything by accident, and guess what? If you do not have a backup, you do not have a disaster recovery plan, then your company is completely and totally in the essence of SOL. If you don't know what SOL is, Google it. Monitoring. So how do you monitor this? How do you monitor your online activity? How do you monitor the servers and the emails and stuff like that? Well, you could use different robust and adaptive needs, such as firewalls, active logging. You can actually have you can have live alerts set up on different systems and different computers and different emails. You can definitely do a lot of different things. So by able to monitor, which is a consistently an ongoing task, you can utilize that to adapt and evolve your company as the threat levels evolve, as your business evolves. Just because the threat level evolves and your business stays stagnant doesn't mean that your business is not subjected to those threats. But let's reverse that. Just because your business evolves and your threats don't evolve still does not mean that your business is not subjected to these threats right here. And if you have them both equal, guess what? You're at a really good risk of being attacked. So now let's take a look at the NIST cybersecurity framework. By looking at this, we're going to learn a little bit more. So what is the NIST? NSI, why do I always keep, I've always done that. I've always went NSIT is NIST. This is your cybersecurity framework. This is a voluntary framework that basically provides the guidelines to help improve your cybersecurity resilience of your organization's critical infrastructure. This is typically developed by the National Institute of Standards and Technology, hence the term NIST. Now, this policy actually offers you a very detailed, structured approach in identifying, protecting, detecting, and even responding to and recovering from cyber threats. Okay, so we have a whole bunch of different cyber threats that we can look at. And if I come over here in NIST, I hope that this is going to pull over. So you can actually do the National Institute of Standards and Technology. You can look at the publications, you can look at the major programs, you can look at services and resources. You can do a whole lot. Just go to nist.gov and you're good to go. Like, you gotta look around, try to get yourself familiar with some of this stuff. Right? So, check it out. So, identification or identifying. The first thing you want to look at is your asset management. Then you want to look at your business environment. Then you want to check out your governance. Now, a lot of people say you check out your governance first. No. Some people would even say you want to look at your business first. No. It has to go assets, business, governance. Why? Well, you can't set proper governance if you don't have your business model. But you can't have a business model if you don't have assets, right? Imagine this. Imagine a world where Jeff Bezos built Amazon.com but did not have any inventory. I mean, granted, he doesn't technically have inventory now, but he built an entire website. There was no customers to sell products, and he didn't have products to sell. It would literally be the epitome of just having a blank basic website right here that basically says, buy my crap, but you have no crap to buy. So you have to make sure your inventory managing and organization assets ensure critical assets are protected, right? Now, assets are not just your products. Your assets are actually your customers. So how does that reference that I just used incorporate to your customers or your employees? Well, if you have no products to sell on your website, then you'd have no reason for customers. Customers equals none. They don't exist, right? So you do not have any customers. But if you have employees, right? So we can come over here, employees. I'm going to do this at a very cheap E. But you do have employees. Well, those employees, you might actually have login information. You might have emails, passwords, SSH tunnels. You might have maybe addresses, social security numbers, whatever you got. Those are the assets we're talking about. Not necessarily your inventory of buy this, buy that, buy this because it's big and popular. You'd want to make sure that your customers and your employees are protected. Okay, these are what we're looking for to protect with our systems, right? Who cares if your products get hacked? So what if somebody was able to find a vulnerability and be able to get the product for free or for a half price or whatever just because they injected a XSS, right? So we put like an X right here. So they found an XSS, got it for free. Hey, cool, guess what? You just figured out. Let's go ahead and fix that. That is nothing compared to, hey, XSS attack led to an email, a password, an address. Okay. Then your business environment. Now, this is protecting your organization's mission, your objective, and the biggest one, the stakeholders. Your stakeholders could be your investors, actual people that are actually having very big amounts of stakes inside of your company. You want to prioritize the important people. Now, I'm not saying that your low-level janitor employee is less important or more important than the CEO. Maybe you got an angel investor that just dumped, $5 million. The janitor and the investor and the CEO, the CTO, the office manager, everything that ties into your business, all are equal. And so you need to treat their security, their protection as such. Ask yourself this question. Am I okay with a hacker coming in and taking all of the information from my investor? If that answer is no, then what makes you think that that information for that investor is okay to be leaked out for the janitor? Or maybe you actually have just a what do you call it? Intern web developer or an intern sysadmin or whatever. If the investor or stakeholders' information cannot be leaked, neither can anybody else's. Once you have your assets and you've identified your important assets and you've identified how your business is structured, then you can work on your governance. Otherwise, without your proper governance, you're out of compliance. Right? Remember we talked about you gotta have governance, you gotta have compliance, you gotta have risk. So protection. Oh, I lost something. Nope, I found it. So protection. How to protect everything. Well, it all starts off with the access control section. If you do not have access control, I mean, if you have access control, this could be from your employees working directly in the office. This could be employees working AFK, out of their office or at their home working. This could even have, where a user's got access to a admin board that's associated with their account. Understanding what access is, who has access to what they can do, then you can also start to measure the limitation access. For example, if you have a new employee who just got signed on, they're an intern, you obviously do not want to give them full access to every single server you own. You might start them off with, hey, you have access to this server, and this server hosts this database and this website. That's all you can do. That way they can build a new website, they can update the database, they can do consistent backups, they can do updates, and they can do what they need to do. All right, versus somebody who's been with your company for 15, 20 years, who's kind of done a little bit of everything by now. They have pretty much full access to all of your networks, your servers, your databases. They've got access to everything. Okay, so you'd want to have those people to have the best access, but they've got to be trusted. Okay, so data security, that's where this comes into. You might want to understand how to protect your information. What kind of encryption or algorithms can we use? What would be a crucial aspect of your company if there was a data loss? And then how can you prevent that from happening? And then finally, the utmost important thing to Human 1.0 is your training. Understanding phishing attempts, social engineering, penetration techniques, cybersecurity policies and procedures, and some of the best practices to help ensure a safe and best environment for your organization to flourish, not dwellish. So detection, anomalies and events. Let's identify unexpected activity through continuous monitoring and detection systems. Remember when we was talking about the IDS and the IPS from earlier in a previous video? Yeah, consistently monitoring and identifying and even quarantining these threats autonomously would be a crucial key. And continuously monitoring, which will, so anomalies and events, identify and detect and quarantine is kind of like your IPS. Whereas your continuous monitoring would be your IDS systems. Monitor everything. Make sure everything's detected in real time. Okay? Now, how you respond to this is definitely going to be a crucial key in your organization's, let's call it, reputation. Okay? So, if you already have a breach response set up, you already know how to communicate and you get your analysis. Okay, so if you already have your response if you already have basically what to do if an attacker does this, or what to do if we're breached this. If you have that policy in place, then just follow that policy. Okay, make sure it's up to date. Communicate. Make sure that your stakeholders, your investors, your customers, your employees, whoever is affected by this in any way, shape, form, or fashion, make sure they understand the risk. Make sure they understand what has happened and what you are doing to ensure that their information is still safe, secured, and protected. And then analysis. Analyze what had happened. Go back, look over the firewall logs, look at the server logs, look at the networking logs, look at, emails coming in and going out, look at the traffic, look at everything. Figure out, how did it happen? What was the impact of the entire issue? And what was the initial root cause? Was it a former employee who got pissed off and said, "F you guys, and I'm gonna tear your company down from the inside out"? Was it just happened to be some random black hat hacker who just wanted to test their deals out, and you happen to be the most secure thing they had? They just stumbled upon you by accident. Was it something that you said something left wing, and the attacker of your company was right wing, or vice versa? Maybe you're a Christian and they're a Jew. There's literally a plethora of different things that could be why the root cause had happened. The root cause is somebody got in. How do they get in? Through this root cause. Why do they get in? That's an extra extent to the root. Okay, so now we're going to do recovery planning. Recovery planning allows you to develop and implement a plan or multiple plans that will restore your full capabilities, will restore all of your services that were impaired by this security breach. Okay, so, this server went down and it had all of our databases. Okay, that's bad. If your databases are down, your customers can't access the website, your employees can't access the internal websites or their own websites or whatever. So you got to get that database back up now. Okay, so how do you get those back up effectively and get them back into the deal? Remember we was talking about backups? Yeah, if you don't take regular backups, you might lose everything. That's a big bad thing. Okay. Improvements. Utilizing lessons that you have learned from incidences as well as other training. If you've done training modules, you've gone through a couple of programs and you know how to make sure this doesn't happen again, well, still take that incident and learn from it. Figure out how it happened, adapt the measures, and then put in better recovery strategies if your recovery planning wasn't effective enough. And then communication again. You notice communication is spread out through a lot. You've got to coordinate your recovering activities with internal and external parties. This ensures that you are being transparent and you're displaying proper communication effectively. Okay, if give you an example, let's say you own a business and some angel investor said, "Hey, I love what you're doing. I want to invest $5 million." Bet. So y'all sign up a contract. He gives you $5 million. You see that money in your bank account, and then a month later, your entire website is down. Okay, it's down. Why is it down? Because somebody hacked in, there was a data breach, or maybe it was even one of those things where the janitor was up there cleaning and they accidentally hit a button and it turned the server off. I mean, let's say, they're sweeping and the top of the broom handle hit a button on the server, turned the server off, or restarted the server and not all the services got restarted. It could literally be everything from a fire in a flood, a janitor accidentally hitting a button. The reason why I put the janitor in there is because I've actually heard that happen from one of my buddies who was working at a company. Funny story. The janitor was just in there sweeping and mopping. Swept the whole floor just fine. He had one of those big old huge shop brooms, right? So he was just, kind of chugging along. And then he was sitting there mopping back and forth, right? Well, he went to do this and he was singing a song. And as he went to go pull it back this way to sweep going back that way, well, that top of that deal had hit a button. Well, there's still a bunch of flashing lights, so he looked and goes, "Oh, well, maybe I just hit the side panel." Didn't think anything of it because he's a janitor, not an IT guy, doesn't know what had happened. So he keeps on going. 1 o'clock in the morning, my buddy gets a phone call from his boss, who got a phone call from his boss, who got a phone call from the CEO, who got a phone call from the investor who just dumped, I think at the time it was like $600,000. Just dumped $600,000, and he tried to log into his portal. And it just so happened that the investor who put the money in, his information, and able to access him and all the customers that's within his aspect was on that one specific server. So that server was a database to handle customers that fit this category. And so this is 1 o'clock in the morning. Everybody's getting a phone call. So my buddy drives all the way down to the office in Austin, Texas. Drives all the way down there. And he's looking over the logs. He tries to connect to the server, realizes he can't connect. It's just saying disconnected, or unable to connect is what it says. Unable to connect. He's like, I know I've got access. I have access on my computer at the house. I have access on the computer here. I got access on this computer here. And it's not letting me. So what does he do? He starts looking at the server. Now, the first thing he notices at the server is he starts looking at all the plugs, like the power cable, the Ethernet cables going in, going out. He looks at, the cables on the UPS, make sure that the power is still there. He looks at power cable. He looks at everything. He spent 4 hours on that thing. Now, bear in mind, he is in a big, huge room, and he's got 4 other servers. These servers are really loud. So his internal thought is not thinking, is this server even on? So he goes back to his computer, reboots his computer, tries to connect again, can't do it, right? And he goes back in, and he is freaking out. Server's not active, it's not doing anything. So He calls in his coworker. He goes, man, I can't figure it out. I don't know what's going on. I've tried everything. I've unplugged everything from this switch. I've unplugged everything from where it goes. I've done this. I've done that. I cannot figure it out. So his coworker. Now his coworker, they had just hired like 7 months ago as an intern. And his coworker looks over at it and goes, bloop. Presses a button and the server turns on. You want to talk about my buddy who's been in the IT world for over 20 years? Didn't bother to look at the power button to see if it was glowing or not. A humiliation like that. So recovering planning is being able to understand how things work and how to recover from that. You know, always looking at even the smallest little details. Those are going to be crucial to helping you with your recovery planning. Now, improvements. Ironically, I don't know what kind of improvements they did, but I personally would have put a door on that server rack to where if anybody hits it, nothing's going to be disconnected again or accidentally turned off. That would be a great improvement on how to prevent this from happening again. Putting a door on the front of that server rack. Communications. Well, obviously, what my buddy did was he ended up calling his boss. Hey, this is what had happened. So my boss called his, not my boss, my buddy's boss called his boss, who called the investor, and everything kind of got sorted out. The investor was able to log back in and see that everything was just fine. There was no issues. He's like, okay, cool. You got it fixed. That's great. All this happened in like 6 to 7 hours, right? From the time the investor tried to figure out what was going, from the time the investor tried to hit the website to the time he was able to get back into it was like 6 to 7 hours times had elapsed. But for the investor who doesn't know anything about this, realize server is offline, unable to communicate, DNS probing errors. 7 hours later, it was back up and on again. And they said that it was an internal networking error. They tried to make something up besides a janitor pressed a button. So the guy actually thought, oh, that y'all got it fixed pretty well. Communication, learning how to improve on that issue, and then your recovery plan to fix and mitigate everything else. GDPR. The General Data Protection Regulation Act. I don't know why I said act. I like to do that. This is actually a European law that governs the data and protection of privacy. Protection and privacy. This enacted on May 25th of 2018. Now, this specific GDPR policy actually aims to provide individuals with greater control over their personal data, while simplifying the regulatory government that are required for the international business operating in the European countries. So does a GDPR need to be for somebody who's in Canada, Mexico, USA, Russia, Germany? Well, yes it does. Okay, so what exactly is this? Well, this basically says that, hey, you have to tell your person or anybody that's using your website or any of your stuff, how are you collecting their information? What are you doing? Are you just cookie harvesting? Are you just doing just collecting their information? How is this being stored? How are you processing this information? What is being transferred? Okay, this is indeed crucial for everybody in the entire world. Okay, not just little bitty old Europe. Everybody. All right. So you know that little box that everybody just like checks and has to go away for the cookie data and the personal information data and all that? Nobody in the world really reads them, unless you're cybersecurity freaks or you're one of those who actually really loves to learn and study all these policies and regulations and rules for signing up with a website. Those little pop-up things that you just say, hey, go away, that is how your information is being collected, stored, transferred, sold in some cases. Not saying anything, and I'm not going to say any names here, Google, Facebook, but though that information has to be present on anybody who is desiring to have customers log in or even use a website. If you're not collecting anything, then a very simple, we don't collect crap on you is sufficient. If you're not collecting the cookies, you're not collecting or harvesting cookies. If you're not spying on their phone, text messages, or phone calls, if you're not trying to intercept and spy on their internal communications, then you just say, we're not tracking nothing. Have a nice day and enjoy our software, right? But if you're like storing, like, okay, well, hey, guess what? We're not really collecting any information on you, but we are storing your username, we're storing your password, we're storing your email address, we're storing your information that you post on here. This is the database we're using. This is how we're storing it. This is how it's communicating. You do not have to go into details. Don't give away IP addresses. Don't give away URLs to that data storage. Don't give away the API endpoints. Just say we utilize API keys and different endpoints in order to pull information to and from our database server. Right? That's all you got to do. Nothing major. Bad. Send me a list of the books. Alright, sorry about that. So, GDPR is basically saying your general data protection regulations, how you're doing it, what you're doing. That way your customers know that your website is safe. They also know, not necessarily safe, that's the wrong thing. Your customers needs to know, what are you doing with their data? That's what they need to know. Lawfulness, fairness, and transparency. Organizations must process personal data lawfully, fairly, and in a transparent manner. Remember the GDPR we were just talking about? Yeah, you might want to figure out what's going on. By providing and obtaining clear consent from your data subjects, customers, employees, and then providing them with the information of how their data is being used. Point in fact, how many people know of a couple of different specific companies that has been caught selling information that you were a part of, but you didn't know about it? You didn't know. Purpose limitation. The personal data should be collected for specified, explicit, and legitimate purposes. Alright, so if you're got a social media website, or you have an e-commerce website, or you have a medical website, or you have, some sort of a website, whether it's external or internal, and people need to log in. They need to store their credit card information for faster checkout times. They need to store their, they're updating their, are they married or single? Whatever it is, every aspect of that site that you are collecting information, even if they don't put their cookies in, but your website's automatically capturing those cookies and storing them. Guess what? That needs to be in there. So this list can literally be 27 pages long. If you literally do, and it's literally very simple. It's very simple, but it's very complex. So you sit there and say, cookie harvesting, we harvest your cookies utilizing these browsers. List the browsers that you harvest the cookies on. If it's only one, say Google. If you don't harvest cookies on Firefox or Internet Explorer or Safari, don't list them. If you don't list them, I'm going to say here, I'm going to only visit your website on these devices, on these browsers. And then you figure out, why are you collecting that information? And then what are you using that information for? Okay? You have that. You can put it up in a table view element. It is not that hard to do. It's just time consuming, which makes it a very difficult and tedious task. Pass that off to an intern. Simple. Data minimization. So, while corporations like Google, Facebook, Twitter, Bing, Yahoo, I could go on, but I'm not going to. CIA, NSA, FBI. Oh, I'm sorry, I did go on. While they think more data, more data, more data, more data, you should be thinking less is more. Because the less information you have on your customers, the less you are responsible for. Think about that. The less information you have, the less responsibility you have. Okay? Now, the utmost crucial part of this is your accuracy. Your organization must take reasonable steps to ensure the accuracy of personal data. Inaccurate data should be corrected or deleted without any delay. Okay, so if you have, if you are collecting data on everybody, okay, and you're reporting it to some government agency or some other third-party agency because, you know, they require it, and you realize John Dane over here, his first name is John, his last name is Doe, but you know his last name is Dane or Jane or Blaine or whatever, either correct it or delete it. Now, if everything about this user is completely wrong, delete it. Just delete it. There's no use in going in there and manually correcting it. Because if you do that, you're going to find out that you can be doing that to a lot of different things. Limiting your storage. The personal data should only be kept in a form that permits identification of data subjects for none longer than is necessary for the purpose of which the data is processed. Let me give you an example. All right, if you are storing cookies or harvesting cookies, or if you're storing addresses or credit cards or anything like that, there's always an expiration on how these things handle. So don't, if it's, like for example, and this is a very rough draft example, I mean, very basic. If your customer has a debit card, okay, and that debit card expires in 2023, okay, well, the year is 2027. You no longer need that credit card information. It's already expired. If your user created an account in 2012, here we are in 2030, and that user has not used your website once, delete the information. If they are paying a monthly or yearly fee, cancel it for them. I'd even go so far as to give them a partial or full refund. Say, hey, we noticed you haven't been using our platform since you signed up. You've been paying monthly or yearly. We just now caught this. Our business has been growing. We're sorry that you haven't been using our services. And as a token of saying, hey, thanks for your money, here's like half of it back at least. And then try to figure out why have they used it, but they're paying for it. You know, just different things that helps boost your reputation, helps increase your customer database, but ultimately, don't store it if you don't need it. Less is more. Integrity and confidentiality. Personal data must be processed in a manner that ensures appropriate and security, including the protection against unauthorized or unlawful processing of accidental loss, destruction, or damages. This involves implementing technical and organizational measures to secure data. Now, just like what that infomercial guy just said, basically what it means is protect your databases. Protecting your databases, protect your data, protecting your data, protect your customers, your employees, and this also helps prevent the destruction or the damages to your servers, your database, your customers, your employee, your reputation, your finances. You might, how does this set up? Okay, well, you got a database that's hosting all of your customers' information. Somebody hacks it. They're trying to steal information, but they accidentally delete everything instead of dumping everything. Oh, that's a bad thing. And if you don't have a backup of that data, excuse me, I'm sorry. If you do not have a backup of that data, or if you don't have any way of recovering from that, everything that your entire organization just built up for leading up to that attack was for nothing, and it's almost impossible to recover from a data loss without proper backups. It is next to impossible to recover from that. So let's take a look at some of the companies in violation of this. Meta. You probably heard me say this company probably about 5 or 6 times or more throughout this journey so far. Well, Meta has been a frequent offender. What does that mean? They violate these policies multiple times. The largest was a record of a $1.2 billion fine for transferring EU user data into the US without adequate protection. Basically, they was just like saying, hey, here's a database, we're going to transfer it over this way, and we're not going to protect it. As a result, there's some things that got leaked out. Meta had been fined yet again for 390 million euros or pounds for forcing users to accept the new terms that change the legal basis for data processing from consent to a contract fulfillment. What does that mean? In order to use their website, you were forced to accept the new terms that basically said that this is no longer consent, but this is now a contract to fulfill. You can read more about the $390 million data breach. The term issues all over Google. You can just Google search Meta $390 million for contract fulfillment, whatever. Amazon, everybody loves Amazon just as much as Facebook. They were fined $746 million by Luxembourg's Data Protection Authority. Why? Because they were processing personal data in violation of the GDPR, particularly regarding their advertising targeting system without proper user consent. So people were using this without their consent, and they were basically targeting the advertising. TikTok, one of the largest video streaming sites. They were fined $345 million by the Irish Data Protection Commission for improperly handling children's data. Think your kids are safe on TikTok? Think again. All right. Criteo, the French advertising technology company, was fined $40 million, or 40 million euros, by France's Data Protection Authority, the CNIL. Why? Because they failed to obtain proper consent for processing user data, again, for targeted advertising. Things like these targeted advertisings are all like something that's a conspiracy theory, right? Why is everybody in violation of targeted advertising? Google is the #1 advertising agency in the world, right next to Facebook. What are they doing? What are they doing with all that information? Why are they okay to just randomly do this? Probably because they're getting information for this. Implementation and examples and best practices. This is going to be the last section we do. I'm going to call it a night. The ISO 27001 is a financial institution implementing the ISO 27001 to enhance its security. So basically what happens? A leading financial institution undertook the implementations of ISO 27001 to systematically manage and protect the sensitive information that they are storing. This organization began by defining the scope of its information security management system. Remember we were talking about the ISMS? Yeah, that's what they were talking about. And they conducted a thorough risk assessment to identify potential threats and vulnerabilities. They might have put their company up on Bugcrowd or HackerOne. They could have hired an independent contractor or a freelance hacker. So, what happened? Well, the regular internal audits. They conducted frequent internal audits to ensure that the ISMS remains effective. Employee training. They actually end up teaching their employees some of the best policies that they are putting into practice, some of the procedures that needs to happen in case a violation of policy did occur, and what best practices to help these policies from being exploited or foul played, put it that way. And they made continuous improvements on what they did by sitting there and consistently updating their standards of their ISMS over time, but to keep up with what had happened, then they was able to keep everybody up to date, informed, and make sure the policies are no longer in violation. NIST. This is from a healthcare provider that used the new NIST framework to protect their patient data. Now, I'm not naming any of these companies off for a fairly regular reason. This specific healthcare provider or agency had adopted the NIST Cybersecurity framework in order to safeguard their patient information. This was able to involve in identifying critical assets such as API endpoints, databases, IP addresses, etc., etc. They then implemented protective measures and then established a robust incident response plan, or I guess report plan would have been just as adequate there. So what was the best practices here? Again, they did risk assessment. They actually adapted MFA, which is your multi-factor authentication, and then they added a new incident response planning. Now we're gonna look at the GDPR. Now this came from an e-commerce company again. I'm eradicating their names for practices, but they were in trying to get more GDPR compliance for their customers' data in their database. So e-commerce XYZ, they wanted to comply with more GDPR practices and policies. So they implemented this very comprehensive and very lengthy data protection measure. This actually did involve mapping out all of the data flows. Now, this was an exceedingly long task. I think this task took them probably 3 months to do. They also did the data protection impact assets, and they established new clear privacy policies. So, what kind of practices can we see from this GDPR? They did their data mapping, data protection and impact assessments. They consistently had consulted with hackers and cyber consultants and stuff like that to ensure that they understood the assessments and the impact of these issues. And they provided brand new clear privacy policies. So with that being said, I'm not sure if we have anybody live on our stream right now. So I'm going to go ahead and call this a night because I've only got one view. Oh, I do have 2 viewers in here. Does anybody have any questions so far? I didn't realize I had people in here. Nobody was pinging off. Anybody have any questions about what we went over so far? Because if not, I'm turning this off. Heading out for the night. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Alrighty, you guys have a good night, and we will definitely be working on some new course materials.